Well, now I was gonna do the historical videos. Brought the big magnets, as you would have seen in the Buffalo video this morning. But I don't have all the historical jerseys here. I didn't bring all my jerseys. That would be crazy. I brought about a dozen. I want to say a dozen. And maybe less than that. And not all of them have matching hats, which is very disturbing and upsetting to me. But um, I did want to talk about historical stuff in the context of Vegas. Now, I've been trying to get a decent shot of outside, but all the camera picks up is just sunshine. Sunshine. So I'll just have to do some work with my phone while we're here and leave this as is for now. I want to talk to you guys about Eddie Shore. Eddie Shore was the first superstar defenseman in the NHL, but he's also a guy that if he had played now and if he played the way he did back then, I think there would have been some problems. He did win Stanley Cups with Boston in 1929 and 1939. He won the Hart Trophy for MVP 1933, 35, 36, and 38. That's four, and that's the most by a defenseman. He was a first team All Star in 1931, 32, 33, 35, 36, 38, and 39. And he was a second team All Star in 1934. January 2017, he was named one of the 100 greatest players ever. In his NHL career, he played 550 games, had 105 goals, 179 assists, and 284 points to go with his 1,047 penalty minutes. He fought a lot. He also went across that line, but we'll get to that. He retired in 1939 and bought Springfield Indians, and he was a player and a coach for that team. Something you don't see much of anymore. I'm not sure of every league. I can't be sure of every league, but it's very, very rare that a guy's coaching and playing at the same time. And then there, of course, is the infamous Ace Bailey incident. So, in a game against Toronto, Shore gets knocked down, gets up and hits the first guy he sees. The first guy he sees is Ace Bailey. Bailey's skull gets fractured when it hits the ice, and it ends up ending his career. Also in that same incident, however, Red Horner, the tough guy of the Toronto Maple Leafs, knocked Shore out and knocked Shore to the ice. Shore's head hit the ice. So while we all know about what Shore did to Bailey, what Red Horn did to Shore is also kind of newsworthy because it just reminds us all, hey, you kind of need to wear a helmet. But it's okay. Players would figure out 50 plus years later that they needed a helmet. About 50 years later, they needed a helmet because they need a helmet for. And what I mean by needed is, I mean that the NHL actually mandated them before making them optional again, which was weird. The weirdest incident with Eddie Shore though is with, I believe it was Nick Coutu, Billy Coutu. It gets traded to Boston from Montreal, and I guess Bailey didn't like he or I think it's Eddie Cleghorn. I want to say Sprague Cleghorn. Let me double check that. Yeah, Sprague Cleghorn. I was going to say Eddie. I don't even know who Eddie Cleghorn is. In the incident, they kind of get physical, sort of like it sounds like Shore was taunting him, even though this was his teammate. So Coutu decided he'd had enough and went after him. And in the fracas that took place, Eddie Shore's ears almost completely ripped off the side of his head. Shore goes to a couple of doctors who say, yeah, we'll just take it off. And he's like, no. So he found a doctor who would surgically repair his ear. And he demanded no anesthetic. Takes a special man to say, nah, I'll just not take the anesthetic while you're putting my ear back on. And then he wanted a mirror so he could watch them put his ear back on. Eddie Shore was a special, different kind of person. And it was commented on in the video where I talked about the season, the historical season that Eddie Shore ended the career of Ace Bailey, that he could have been charged with attempted murder. Sure. By today's standard, I think he would eclipse Brad Marchand in terms of most hated. And his level of talent, I don't think, would shield him from being the most hated player in the game. It's a strange thing because we talk a lot about how, well, Marchand doesn't deserve a Hart Trophy because look at him, look at the stuff he does. And yet, he won 4 Hart Trophies as a defenseman, which you don't see anymore because defensemen get the Norris Trophy. I mean, there have been defensemen that have won it, but definitely not 4 times. And, the most dominant of dominant defensemen might get nominated, but it's usually going to go to 3. 3 different forwards are going to be the ones that are the favorites to win it. It's an interesting career that he fashioned for himself. He passed away in 1985. He lived to be 83 years of age. My guess is death was trying to take him when he was in his 50s, and he just beat the crap out of it every time it showed up at his door. He was a tough guy. He was challenged to a boxing match, which he was all ready to accept, from a baseball player, of all people. And I say that because it wasn't a boxer. And he might have gone for it, but Major League Baseball stepped in and said, yeah, no. So Shore's reputation as the toughest guy in the game was well earned, and I'm sure that the scorn that he got from fans of other teams was also well earned. But it is an example of how I almost think that we get so caught up in the bad incidents with players that we miss out on how great some of them are. There are some of them that just genuinely can be reprehensible. But there are some that have been very good players and have been capable of being the best in the game at times. But hey, I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Because, I know these historical videos don't necessarily hit the top of the charts with people, but I think it's important to know where the game came from, to know the careers of the stars who played the game before we were on this planet. And hey, if you don't find out where you've come from, you miss out on something. So this has been the Eddie Shore video. I would show you guys the strip, but my camera keeps just showing me glare. So after fighting with it, I went, all right, and I just turned it towards me, and there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and from the city of Las Vegas, this has been The Hockey Guy.